So I'm 35 years old. My name is Marcus Limegård. I work as a language teacher. I teach English, French and German at a junior high school in Sweden. My pupils are between 12 and 15 years old. I've been working as a teacher, language teacher, for many years. And I have also studied languages, French and Spanish, at university level. And for a couple of years now, I've been interested in global geopolitics. It's really horrible. It's what really got me interested for real in geopolitics a few years back. I have following the situation ever since the Maidan uprising started in late 2013. I remember it just happened after the chemical weapons attack in Syria, when the United States were going to bomb Syria, just like Libya had been bombed. But Russia stepped in and make a peace agreement. They made sure that Syria could dispose of their chemical weapons, and it was a great victory for the global peace movement. That war was actually thwarted in one way. And so I immediately saw the connection when the Maidan uprising started in late 2013. I understood that something more was afoot than just discontent towards corrupt politicians, because Ukraine was a very important partner and neighbor to Russia. Viktor Yanukovych had very good relations to the Russian leader, Vladimir Putin. So I understood from the beginning that something was wrong. And I was fortunate enough to follow both Western media channels, but also Russian media channels like Russia Today. And so I was informed about the elements of fascism, like the Svoboda Party and Pravi Sector, who really celebrate Nazi collaborator Stepan Bandera. And I really saw some horrible images when they were beating the police with sticks and chains, and they were throwing Molotov cocktails at them. I also saw the scenes when the coup d'etat had been fulfilled, and they were masked men, thugs, fascists, who stepped into the Ukrainian parliament and really forced Ukrainian parliamentarians to vote in a certain way, and they were really intimidating. And I know that in that context, the people of Crimea, they wanted to secede from Ukraine, and Viktor Yanukovych fled to Crimea because he was fearing for his life. He knew that if he stayed in Kiev, that they would kill him. So that he did, and he gave Russia the permission to give the military backing so that the Crimeans could have a referendum to secede from Ukraine, and that has really sparked a very dangerous situation in all of Europe, because now in Sweden our politicians and our journalists are saying that we must join NATO, and it really creates a very hostile situation in Europe. And after the Crimean situation, I know that the people of Donbass in Donetsk and Lugansk, they wanted to do the same thing, really, and they demanded federalization of Ukraine, because they wanted autonomy in the regions, but the new Ukrainian authorities wouldn't allow it. So they sent tanks there instead and started to bomb them. And the people of Donbass did what they could. They started to arm themselves and form militias. And I have a friend who has been in Donbass because he had been like a tank driver in Afghanistan. So he's been in Donbass in the war there, and he's told me that it's really horrible. It's awful. It's total devastation everywhere, and the people are living in complete misery. So the Ukrainian authorities are treating their own people like dogs. Really, I saw it was from a speech made by Petro Poroshenko, the president of Ukraine, when he was saying that our children will go to good schools, but their children will live in cellars, holed up, and that's how we will win the war, he said. So it's total cynicism from the Ukrainian authorities, and this is like, they see it as a game of chess. Really, they treat people like pawns in a chess game, and it's very, very cynical because they're real people and they are suffering, and they are suffering every day, and that's why I'm so committed to this situation. It's really deplorable. From the first moment, they have been really hiding what the Maidan movement were doing. They were hiding that there were Nazi elements, fascists within the Maidan movement. They never told us that, you know, there were ministers from Nazi Party Svoboda in the new government. They haven't told us about that, and they never tell us about how the Ukrainian military strike against their own people. So they never ever say anything about that. On the other side, they make up things about Russia without any substance. They take things that there are no proofs for, like they say that there's a Russian invasion of Ukraine, but they never back it up with any evidence. They use very unreliable sources, like NATO, for example, which is itself a very politicized institution. They refer to NATO satellites, which are very blurry, and it really reminds you when NATO presented equally blurry images of Saddam Hussein's weapons of mass destruction in Iraq prior to the war in Iraq, and they turned out to be a lie. And it's the same way here. They make up accusations against Russia. They make up accusations against the people's militia of Donbass as well. For example, in the beginning of the war, there was like a story circulating about some registration of Jews, I think, in Donbass, and they put this out as a news story of anti-Semitism in Donbass, and it turned out to be a lie. And at the same time as they do that, they deny actual Nazism within the ranks of the Ukrainian government. So they turn a blind eye to actual fascism and actual violence on the Ukrainian side, and they make stuff on the Russian side. So Swedish media has become, it's turned out to be completely Orwellian with this crisis. Like, war is peace, and slavery is freedom. Good is bad, and bad is good. So in my eyes, and in the eyes of many of my compatriots, Swedish-made media have lost all their validity, and there is really no real reason for me to rely on them anymore. And it's really tragic when you find yourself in such a situation that you can't really rely on your own authorities anymore. So the Swedish media, they tend to rely on other Western sources, and especially American sources, and they also rely on the authorities of the new Ukrainian government after the coup d'etat, and they never rely on any Russian sources. As a matter of fact, they disregard Russian sources, and they call them just propaganda. And each time that a Russian source is brought up, like Russia Today or Sputnik, for example, they always say Russia Today says, or Sputnik alleges, with a certain tone of voice that you can really tell that they really disregard from the outset what they are saying, as if they're supposing that they are lying. So they have really no objectivity in their reporting. Media is very effective. Swedish media have been relied upon for many years. My older generation, my father's generation, they have been brought up believing that this is one of the most reliable medias in the world, really. Because Swedish media have had a very good reputation. Many people abroad have looked at Sweden and said that Sweden is a very good example for media, for example. Sweden ranks highly in international comparisons, for example. So very many people rely on Swedish media sources because of the good reputation it has since earlier years. Because 20 years ago, yes, Swedish media were reliable, but something has happened in Swedish society since then. It seems like there has been some kind of a corporate takeover of some kind of both the Swedish political system and the mass media system in Sweden. So Swedish media is not what it was once, but many still rely on them because of the good reputation it has since earlier. But as more and more people realize that what is said isn't really accurate, isn't really true, it's actually false many times, more and more people are realizing that Swedish media cannot be relied upon. So new media channels are popping up in Sweden. Many of the new media channels that are popping up are critical towards immigration, for example. Some of the media channels that are popping up really oppose American international interventional policy, but many of the new media sources that do pop up are often attacked by the established media because they feel threatened when new media sources arise. So they often attacked many times. They are called racist, for example. Many times some of the media channels that pop up that oppose American foreign policy, they are called they're accused of being paid by the Kremlin, for example. So they are always subjected to these attacks by the established media in Sweden. Ever since I started, or ever since the Ukrainian crisis started, I've been active because I felt really depressed when it broke out. Because it broke out and, well, the coup d'etat happened in Kiev. Russia did what they did. And I see their reasons for doing it. This situation was very dangerous for Russia. And my decision then was to, well, I felt really depressed in the beginning, to say the truth, because our media were saying that Russia was a very big new threat in our surrounding. And I got really depressed because I knew that what they were saying wasn't accurate, because there was a very much wider context that wasn't being taken into consideration. So I got really depressed by all the people in my surroundings saying that Russia is a very dangerous invader in our surrounding. But I found a Facebook group called Anti-Euromaidan Sweden, which I found, and they engage in spreading accurate information about the Ukrainian situation and the civil war in Donbass, and about Russophobia in Sweden. So I engaged with them, and for a very long time I supported them, and I did work with them for a very long time, and I saw it as a very valuable work, and that way I could establish a very large, wide net of contacts with other people who agree with me on these issues, and that was very important. I was administrator for a very long time in this group. There has been a split now between the founder of the group and me myself. So we have parted ways now, but I still support the work that he does, and I have another Facebook group now called Swedish World Political Forum, which focus on global geopolitics, more generally, not only Ukraine, but we talk about the situation in Syria, for example. We've been talking about Turkey. We've been talking about American election. We've been talking about the situation in South China Sea and tensions between Saudi Arabia and Iran. So we talk about a wide range of issues. And I run that group now, and we have over 1,000 members, and through that group we spread information, and besides that I'm engaged in a couple of organizations with which I do very many different things, like we record podcasts, for example. I helped organize an exhibition for the to commemorate the massacre in Odessa in May 2nd, 2014. For example, we've been doing very many things. We've been writing articles, for example. I've recorded the film. This summer I did a speech on the situation in Ukraine. But the most important work that I do is debates. Is the most important work. Almost every day I engage in debates on Facebook with other people, and many of them only get the perspective that is Swedish media give them. And in the beginning it was really difficult. Many times I was alone debating against 10 or 15 people who think that Putin was like a Hitler or something, and it has really changed. My efforts have paid off, because now it's the other way around. Myself and my friends, with whom I have organized, we've been able to convince many people, and now most people that I see in these debate forums, they actually agree with us, that we haven't been given the whole picture on Ukraine, for example, or on Syria, or on many different issues. So the work we do to engage people and to inform people is very, very important. And with that, we've been able to inform people about other geopolitical situations that had been, buried for a very long time. For example, the wars in former Yugoslavia. Those issues have also been brought into the light, thanks to our efforts, because many of those who engage in Euromaidan Sweden, they are of Serbian background, and they can relate to the situation that Russians in Sweden go through today. So I think that our efforts, they really have paid off. I am really convinced about it. Well, I think that a very groundbreaking event happened during the last few days as we were here. Many have been appalled by this event that did happen, but I think that when Donald Trump was elected president the other day in the United States, and Hillary Clinton was, I think this creates an opening for the relations between the United States and Russia. Because Hillary Clinton had been saying that Russia must be countered for their cyber attacks, and that the nuclear option cannot be taken off the table, which really means that she could nuke Russia over cyber attacks, which nobody has been able to even prove, which is preposterous in my opinion. And Donald Trump has been saying that maybe we should start to work together with Russia. He's been talking about the fact that the United States should be working with Russia against ISIS, the Islamic State, for example. So I think this creates an opening, and I think that this could be a very big step towards NATO dissolving altogether. So I think that American-Russian relationship will have a new reset after this. I'm quite hopeful about it. Now, I don't agree with Donald Trump, and many of the things he say are really distasteful, like things he has said about immigrants, for example, or women, or he denies climate change and things like that. But the very most important things today is the potential World War III against Russia and the United States, and it would be horrible if it happened, because it would be a nuclear war. So I think a step has been taken towards stepping away from the abyss now, so that the United States and Russia actually can begin to be friends or cooperate, at least. I think that sanctions will be taken off very soon. I'm very hopeful that they will be, and I think it will be a natural step now, after what has happened. And taking off sanctions is a very important step to take in order to peace to be established. What has to happen in Ukraine is that both Russia and the West have to constructively support Ukraine. I mean, it can't be that they say, yeah, we're going to support Ukraine, and then you send them tanks and weapons so they can go off and fight the Russians. It doesn't really work that way. So they really have to help Ukraine with money, with resources to build up the country again, and then they have to denazify the country. They have to get rid of all these Nazi fractions like Svoboda and Pravi Sector. And they have to have real democratic elections, not elections when you forbid the Communist Party, or when elections when the party regions they are too afraid to even participate. But you have to have real elections where the politicians' security is really secured, and then all the army, all the troops, they have to leave Donbass right now and go back to Kiev. And before that, there is no chance of any peace, because I know that the Ukrainian forces are bombing Donbass on a daily basis, and that has to stop.